Muy buenas tardes to everyone. I hope everybody's doing well. Well, here's another quick little story just to show you an insight on how politics worked back then, or supposedly politics. Well, this is right after I left Ironwood. I hit Tehachapi Shoe. For some reason, they put me in 7 block and B section. Those that are familiar with Tehachapi Shoe at these times, B section and 7 block was the validated block. It's where most of the camaradas that were in there were all validated. Now, when I got there, the Senor T from Cuca had this side of the prison, and this is actually one of the senores that I have been mentioning that was really cool. I gotta say, he's probably one of the coolest camaradas that I ran across, besides R from Riverside, that was my first celly. He liked to actually converse with camaradas. He liked to share pictures, joke around, and the one thing that he liked to do was drink. He liked drinking once a week. And since B section and 7 block was mostly all camaradas, the only cell in that section were two bloods, and they were real cool. We kept it all the way around respectful with them. So he liked to get on the tier and joke around, sing. He was real firmes. I'll leave it at that. And he actually liked doing things to help the camaradas, you know. He went out his way to help a camarada. And it's real rare among senores. But in this section, there was other senores, you know. There was one from Verdugo sold up with one from B&E, two from 18th Street, and one from SGV. Now in 5 block, there there was a senor by the name of Tio Chino, or Chino, from Maravilla. He was an old school senor, and but those that know around this time is when he overdosed. They found him with a syringe, and he wasn't really happy, you know. So everybody tried to avoid him because he was a little bit sour around this time. Besides the point that he was a real strict one. Now within time, I don't know if I mentioned this in other stories, but right there in the building or in the section, me and T, we shared a van, so we could actually converse with each other without having to put nothing on paper because we didn't have no other two cells side busting on our conversation. It was just us two. One day we're conversating, and he tells me, I want to have the COs move my brother Chino over here so he's not over there in 5 block by himself. Which I said, firmes. You know, what could I say? But it happened. The senor came over here, and it was just like a domino effect, though. It just, for example, one day when they fed dinner, the Huda slipped and they left all the plastic trays on the upper tier. Now, when this happened, they all got chipped to two camaradas from Main, and they were to melt down and distribute them properly amongst every cell. There was not to be no camarada in that section without a fierro, which was done so, as said. But the homies went a little bit overboard, and there were a lot of them left because there were a lot of trays to melt. So one day we went out to yard in different times from the senores and the camaradas that were validated. We went out one day, they went out the next. So one morning before yard, the camaradas were sharing the fierros left over to a homie that was validated to keep while we were at yard. But it was like the squad was waiting for something big to get passed around because they had to notice, all the trays that were missing. So the minute they started fishing them through underneath the door, and for those that know or been into HP, they know that you could actually fish a lot of things through them doors. There's a big gap. But the minute they were fishing them, they ran up in there and they caught them. There was 36 fierros they were trying to pass around. Now, when this happened, they put the Senor T on walk alone. They took his showers. They were mainly trying to figure out what were the fierros meant for. So at the same time, a couple days later, someone in the shower was fishing with the Senor, trying to send him a razor so he was able to shave, and they got cracked. When this happened, the prison decided to ship T out to Pelican Bay. So when they shipped him, there was that spot open. Now, I don't know how it became to the decision. I don't know if it was because he had more authority, not authority, but antiquity or what, but Tio Chino took over. Now, when he took over, he actually moved over to where T was with the homie from Ontario. So now I was able to converse with Chino via the vent. And he acted real famous, you know, because he came around, he was from around the same time that my first celly was from, R from Riverside. And since, I was considered like his kid, we're real cool. Just the minute he took over, things started changing. You know, for one, T liked drinking, but he didn't like using drugs. And Chino, he loved that black. Now, mind you, the 180 V yard was able to touch base to the shoe every week via library because there was a camarada that passed the books. But what Chino started flipping out is how come they weren't touching base? They weren't sending Halle back there. They weren't reporting the right way. So he was mad because he had sent a couple kites asking and he did not get no reply about this. Now, mind you, he had a son in law in the yard. He was part of the crew. So he started telling us that, well, he told me that, I was to take over the yard when I got out because my shoot term was about to be over and I was going to get kicked out to the 180 right there. And but he started sending torpedoes beforehand and they were to assist me once I got there in case, the guys that were there, they didn't want to step down. We were to ramp through them, remove them. But the day came where I was supposed to get out, and right before I left, Chino got at me and he gave me a message to give to his son-in-law, but this wasn't supposed to be put on paper. This was supposed to be given straight, straight by looking at him. So, anyways, I get kicked out. I hit the yard, and you know, I went on reds for classification. But after like 3 days, I told the camaradas to find me some blues so I could sneak out to yard. By this time I had already watched how the program worked and how the seals they move. So I did, put on some state blues Went out to yard, and right away I started looking for Weddle from Venice, which was the homie in charge of the yard. When I found him, I told him, hey Weddle, I'm so and so. Could you give me a minute, por favor? So when I was talking to him, I straight told him, look, the señores in the back, they're mad for this and this reason. And due to that, they're asking me to tell you to step down. As I'm telling him this older cat from the sideline starts telling me, youngster, do you know who we are? You know who I am? You know who my father-in-law is? So right when I heard this, I turned around and I told him, yeah, you're Joker from B&E, right? And he said, Simon, and I told him, look, I got a message for you too, Holmes. Your father-in-law says you're to calm down and you better start acting right with his daughter or else your ass. I don't think you wanna add this extra to him. You're stepping on what his orders are. So he backed off. So Weather was like, well, I didn't have much time because those that have been in the 180 know we don't get a lot of programs. So I had other things to attempt to. But I made it clear to Weather, look, I got to go back and sit down for a while and get classified and I'll be out. When I come out, I expect an answer. Now, mind you, as a, and as a soldado, I'm telling you, if you come to the decision that you don't want to step down, when I come out, just be suited and booted because you know what time it is. So I went about my business. I did what I had to do that day at yard. Went in and sat back down and waited another 3, 4 days to get classified. Once I did get classified, I went with one of the guys that was there to assist me, and he had a pedazo for me. So we went looking for them, and once I found them, I told him, "Hey, Weddle, I need to know what you decided." And right away, Weddle said, "We double checked everything, and everything checks out. And if that's the homie's wishes, I am nobody to go against them." I said, "Firmes, gracias." So we're walking away, and I tell Toro from Pomona, I told him, "Hey, tell everybody to be on their toes." And he's like, "Why?" I told him, "Come on, homies. You know it ain't how it works. It's too easy. These guys are plotting something. They're either gonna side bust me or they're planning on doing something. Or when has it been that easy when you tell another big homies soldados to step down and they just step down? It just don't work like that, you know? And this was a time where you had every yard worrying. It was a time where everybody was stepping on everybody's shoes. It was Artie's time, the Garheda's time. It was all of them doing it. So, anyways, we left it at that. That night, we came out to day room in the night. They gave an hour, and everything was filming. The next morning, we had our couple hours of yard in the morning, and they didn't run it. The afternoon, they didn't run it either. So we went on lockdown. Now, in a couple days, we started hearing that what had happened, that they had gotten a Willa dropped saying that there was recently some shoe kickouts with palabra from the señores that we were to take out every CEO on the yard. We were to whack them. Now, this was a lie, complete lie. There were no such orders. So, anyways, we went on lockdown. Within a week, they came by and searched everybody's cell. They went in my cell, they searched, they put us back in, everything was firmes. And me and my celly, we did have pieces, but we had hit them, and they had searched it. They didn't find nothing, so everything was firmes. Now, a couple days after they had searched my cell already, like at 2, 3 in the morning, squad came. They threw in some shot grenades in the cell, and they rushed up in there and dragged me and my celly out. They put us in the cages, and all of a sudden they found two fierros in the cell. Because another wheeler had been dropped that there were weapons in the cell, and they even gave the Judas the spots where they could have been, and they found them in the lights. So, anyways, now they didn't just have hearsay; they had physical things to send us back. So, for the first month, they took us to A block right there in B side, which is a hole, and we're sitting there, and they actually gave us another shoot term. So once they gave it to us, they moved me back to 7 block to B section. And when I got back there, I ran the homie down with everything that had happened, and his conclusion was the same as mine, that all the 1030s that got dropped on me were all coming from these vatos, because they were the only ones that had something to gain from me not being on the yard, you know. And they didn't like the way things were going to change, because they were actually they were dealing with other races. They were a lot of things that were going to change, that they didn't want to do that. But mind you, the only ones that I had talked to about this issue was Güero, Joker, and the rest of their mess that knew about it. So it wasn't like there was a lot of people that could have dropped these kites, right? So Chino told me, well, look, since there's no actual paperwork, just give me a second, let me draft something up, and I'll make sure that whatever that needs to come their way will come their way. So I said, firmes, no worries. So next week passed, and the library came around. Next, Weddle and Joker, they dropped in on Chino, and they blasted him, or they blessed him with about a gram. Now, I never used black in prison. I'm not gonna say I never used drugs, but black I never messed with. Crystal, as sureños were not allowed to use it, so it was just drinking for me. But then next thing you know, it went from drafting something to him forgetting about it. Period. And I didn't want to press the issue because you know you stand in the way of a dope fiend between the syringe and his vein, and it ain't pretty sight for you. So it got forgotten. Period. And Batos kept running the yard. They kept touching base every week. I don't know what conversations transpired between them. I basically just left it alone. And at this time, I don't know why. I still don't know why I maintain. But at this time, I still was alive first, and I had all. That's all I had, and me becoming a PC or checking in was not an option. Cause like I mentioned before, the only thing on my mind from the minute I stepped in San Quentin was I'm gonna do things right for my neighborhood, put my neighborhood in the right people's ears. But so I kept pushing. At this time is when Chino actually paroled. They moved into another prison to parole, and the camarada, the señor from 18 took over. The minute he took over, he started questioning me about this, so I started telling him, and he was actually going to handle business because he didn't like dolphins either. So, but before this happened, all those vatos that were on the yard touching base with Chino, they found out who was taking over, and they checked in. They locked it up, and it left a sore cut in my mouth. It was just like wow. But you know, I kept pushing forward. By this time, I already knew, that there was good and bad in prison. You just have to, stay away from the bad and maintain with the good and the solid eyes. So I kept pushing. A little bit after this, some homies disrespected the camarada, the señor. So he requested me and my celly when we went out to the concrete yard, because we were in the same concrete yard, if we could take care of that for them. So I told him, Simon, dispuesto, I'm here to assist. So I went out there, and we took care of what we had to. And due to all the other rumors that were flying about me in that prison, they decided to ship me off to Corcoran Shoe. Is when I actually touched base in Corcoran Shoe. But this is just a little insight of how politics really work. You hear all these stories how people politic against people when they say, oh, they're dirty this. But, you know, politics could get dirty. And when I mean dirty, I mean trash dirty. And I won't give you another example. Man, we were in Ironwood. There was this Bato by the name Bato from Eastside Duarte. That motherfucker, excuse my language. Well, this guy, on his righteous paperwork, he had about 13 rapes. But since he had money, he had connections, he was touching about five brothers, putting dope in their hand, putting money in their hands. So he was untouchable. I remember a young camarada they called Chato from Ontario. I always kept telling him, like, look, I already shot kite about this dude. The response from them were, he's paying the mesa, leave him alone. Leave him alone. Just leave it alone. But he didn't listen. He's like, nah, hell no. How am I gonna be walking or moving around someone that has an under 17-year-old? So he kept pressing the issue. Then next thing you know, the camarada with good paperwork got stabbed, removed, and the vato with ours on his jacket, he kept strolling. There's a lot of fun that goes on. It is why in all my videos I say it and I'll say it again, man. Maintain loyalty to those you know since kids that been loyal to you. But most importantly, stay loyal to you and your family. Don't get dragged into the BS of what prison is really about. Because you get dragged in, and a lot of people end up in a worse situation, which is them PC yards. So just value yourself, value doing something for yourself, and value your family. And with this said, I hope everybody enjoyed the little story, and I hope everybody's blessed. Thank you.